Hello, my name is Gary Reedner and I'm the City Supervisor for the City of Moscow. This video is intended to explain some upcoming changes to the city's stormwater management system and the reasons for those changes. We hope to give you an overall sense of the issues that we're facing as a community. For complete details on the legal requirements, please see related information on the City of Moscow website. We'll start this video with an overview of the City of Moscow's existing stormwater system. As its name implies, the stormwater system exists to retain or remove the runoff water from storm events. We'll then explain federal stormwater regulatory requirements and the issues that we must address to meet those requirements. Finally, we'll explain how the Stormwater Management Program will be funded. The Stormwater Management Program is designed to address both the federal regulatory requirements and to help meet the community's ongoing environmental goals. I want to give you some background on the city's existing stormwater system and why that system is subject to federal regulation. Later in this presentation, you'll hear more detail from city staff who are subject matter experts in this area. The City of Moscow owns and operates what is legally identified by the acronym MS4, or Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. An MS4 is defined as a conveyance or system of conveyances that, number one, is owned by a public entity that discharges stormwater to a water of the United States. Number two, is designed or used to collect or convey stormwater such as a storm sewer, pipe, or ditch. Number three, is not a combined sewer. And number four, is not part of a sewage treatment plant or publicly owned treatment works. To prevent harmful pollutants from being washed or dumped into the storm system and downstream receiving waters, federal law requires cities like Moscow to obtain a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, or NPDES, and to develop a stormwater management program. Moscow has been issued an NPDES permit and is working to develop a comprehensive stormwater management program. Now our team will explain in more detail what all of this means for the City of Moscow, its citizens, and property owners. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Schulte and I am the Streets and Stormwater Manager for the city. My team is responsible for operation of the city's stormwater control system and management program. I'd like to spend a few minutes giving you some details about the existing system and current management services. The city's physical stormwater infrastructure is composed of a range of physical assets, over 2,000 stormwater inlets and catch basins, just over 1,000 manholes, almost 100 miles of storm drain pipe, about 1 mile of culverts, 10 miles of open ditch, just under 10 miles of receiving waters, Paradise Creek, Hog Creek, and the South Fork of the Palouse River, over 200 known outfalls to these receiving waters, and 43 surface detention facilities, basins, and ponds. These assets and important public infrastructure support and are supported by a range of city services and functions, including inspecting and cleaning city stormwater inlets, manholes, pipes, bridges, and culverts to ensure proper drainage of runoff. These services help protect public and private property and travelers on city roads, responding to drainage complaints and flooding events, sweeping city streets to pick up dirt, leaves, debris, and trash. This helps prevent plugging of inlets and help reduce pollution of local creeks. Handling, testing, and properly disposing of material cleaned out of the city's stormwater system and generated from street sweeping. Inspecting and maintaining city-owned stormwater detention basins and ponds. The proper function of these facilities is designed to reduce peak runoff rates into local creeks. Inspecting, cleaning, and repairing all stormwater system components to keep the system functioning at an acceptable level. Constructing new stormwater infrastructure to accommodate runoff from public development projects and prevent drainage and water quality problems. Reviewing new private development proposals and inspecting these sites during construction to ensure that stormwater management infrastructure meets city standards. Screening city-owned stormwater outfalls for polluted discharge to protect stream water quality. Providing educational materials to the general public about the importance of managing runoff and reducing stormwater pollution. Hosting events with local volunteer groups and school-aged children. Now that you have a better idea of what Moscow's stormwater system and services are, I'll hand things over to my colleague Ty to give you an overview of the regulatory environment.
Hello, my name is Ty Thompson, and I am the Environmental Services Compliance Coordinator for the city. Much like the city's water, wastewater, and sanitation utilities, the city's stormwater infrastructure and services provide clear safety and quality of life benefits to citizens and property owners. But also like those other utilities, the city's MS4 must also comply with state and federal regulations enacted to protect the public and the environment. The most important law impacting stormwater is the Federal Clean Water Act. This law created the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, and under this regulation, the EPA issued an MPDES MS4 permit to the City of Moscow for its stormwater system. This permit became effective on October 1st, 2019, and implementation milestones and deadlines begin in the fourth quarter of 2020. The MS4 permit details stormwater program activities, milestones, and deadlines that the city will need to follow in order to comply with the Clean Water Act. Under this permit, the city must A. develop and implement a stormwater management program that includes a required set of minimum control measures, B. meet specified timeframes and deadlines, and C. submit annual reports to document progress towards complete program implementation. Permit holders must comply with permit requirements or face penalties under the Clean Water Act. These penalties could include large fines and, in egregious cases, imprisonment. The Clean Water Act also allows third parties to sue permit holders to enforce compliance with permit requirements. It is not uncommon for environmental and conservation groups to sue MS4 permit holders. The MS4 permit includes 5 main components called minimum control measures. The implementation and enforcement of the 5 control measures is collectively referred to as a permit holder's stormwater management program, or SWMP. The minimum control measures are 1. Construction site runoff control, or the construction program. 2. Stormwater management for areas of new development and redevelopment, or the post-construction program. 3. Pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations, infrastructure management, and maintenance, or the O&M program. 4. Illicit discharge detection and elimination, or the IDDE program. And 5. Education, outreach, and public involvement, or the PIE program. The MS4 permit provides detailed requirements within each of the minimum control measures. In addition to these 5 minimum control measures, the permit also requires compliance with additional requirements for discharges to impaired waters like Paradise Creek, and record keeping and reporting. These requirements are intended to reduce the discharge of stormwater pollutants into surface waters from municipal storm drains to the federally required maximum extent practicable, or the MEP, and protect water quality in local receiving waters, goals that mesh well with the City of Moscow's ongoing commitment to environmental sustainability. Now, Tyler Palmer will explain the funding needs the city faces to meet these requirements.
Hello, my name is Tyler Palmer, and I am the Deputy City Supervisor of Public Works and Services for the City of Moscow. I now want to explain the research we've done and the funding gaps we've identified related to maintaining our stormwater system and meeting the regulatory requirements Ty just went through. Knowing these requirements were on the horizon, we conducted a stormwater user fee study over the last several years. We examined the city's existing stormwater program to identify and catalog stormwater-related ordinances, drainage design standards, general plan, review, and construction site inspection procedures, maps, inventories of existing storm system facilities and infrastructure, operation and management activities, annual budgets, personnel costs, equipment, capital project needs and priorities, estimates of current expenditures, and other related information. We then compared the information gathered in this study to the forthcoming permit requirements and other established city stormwater priorities. Based on this comparison, we identified a range of stormwater gaps between what is currently being done and A, what needs to be done to meet regulatory requirements, and B, what is needed to enhance other stormwater services and functions. In addition, we estimated the funding needed to address stormwater capital projects that will be required as the infrastructure ages. City staff developed recommendations and cost estimates to fill the identified gaps. In this process, it became clear that current funding levels are not sufficient to address these gaps. There are currently few revenue sources and funding mechanisms available to the city to operate its stormwater program, detailed earlier in the video by Steve. Expenses for existing stormwater-related activities are currently covered by general fund revenues derived from property tax levy, state sales tax, plan review fees, utility franchise licensing and permit fees, and other minor revenue sources, and special revenue funds, specifically the street fund, revenue derived from highway user tax and road and bridge tax. Securing the necessary additional funding and implementing the recommendations developed through the gap analysis process will ensure that the city can continue to meet local stormwater priorities along with new regulatory requirements without eroding maintenance or services in other critical areas. To create the level of revenue needed to support the city's existing and future stormwater program, city staff considered several funding options and mechanisms. Based on the analysis of various financial alternatives and revenue-generating mechanisms, we are proposing the following sources of revenue for near-term implementation by the city: enacting a citywide system of user fees collected on a monthly basis with revenue deposited in a stormwater enterprise fund, reviewing and updating city development service permit fees to account for and recover stormwater-related permitting, plan review, and construction inspection costs, and continuing to use the street fund to help pay for stormwater management activities that overlap with street management activities during the transition to stormwater user fees. We feel this combination of funding mechanisms is the best option for the City of Moscow to meet regulatory requirements and to maintain the stormwater system short and long term. Let me summarize what we just went over. The City of Moscow owns and operates an MS4 and has been issued an NPDES MS4 permit. The permit imposes mandatory requirements on the city in order to legally discharge stormwater from the MS4 into the waters of the United States, like Paradise Creek. The permit requires the city to develop a comprehensive plan, SWMP, to meet the various regulatory provisions of the permit issued by the US EPA last October. The city has identified gaps in the existing SWMP that must be fulfilled in order to meet minimum control measures and reporting and record-keeping requirements contained in the permit. Current funding for the existing stormwater system is inadequate to address these gaps. To create the level of revenue needed to support the city's existing and future stormwater program, the city is proposing a citywide system of user fees to recover the costs incurred by the city in providing stormwater drainage services, including the cost of maintaining the system, funding future capital needs, and complying with all applicable regulations. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video and get an overview of the city's stormwater management system. Remember, to get more detail, be sure to visit the City of Moscow's website.